Welcome, everyone, to the latest episode, Women in Sales episode of the Sales Game Changers podcast. As always, I'm excited to be here, and I just love talking to women in sales. And today I have two guests, so that'll make it even more fun. Carly Evan-Tanto, who is the Director of Business Development for the government consulting arm of ABS, and Christy Wong, who is the Global Director of Cybersecurity at ABS. So welcome.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
So I gave them your titles, but let's get down to who you are and how you work and how you came to be the team that you are. So Christy, do you want to go first and tell us a little bit about how you got to where you are?
Sure. So, like you said, I'm the Director of Global Cybersecurity Business Development for ABS Consulting. Been in this role for about, 6 months now, Carly? Something like that. Prior to that, I led our government growth practice. And prior to that was specific to DOT. So I've been in sales the entire time while I've been here at ABS, kind of doing that hybrid, capture business development role. Prior to ABS, I was at a lot of different organizations, some large systems integrators, some small, whether it's digital transformation, but really have lived in the government space for a majority of my career. In my current role, I do both commercial and federal, so that has certainly been a learning experience for me, but really exciting to be able to support both sides of the organization. And then Carly, I bullied Carly into joining ABS a year ago at this point, a little over a year ago. So excited. And Carly now leads our government practice. So I'll let Carly, if you want to tell us a little bit about how you got here and why you chose me after I bullied you into it.
Yes, I'm Director of Business Development for the government sales sector here at ABS. I previously was brought into ABS to be a capture manager, a sales representative to grow out our FEMA and Department of Homeland Security portfolios under Christy. And then a little bit over 6 months ago, Christy was extended the offer to go lead our cyber sales. And as a result, she pulled me up alongside of her to lead the government sales team. So it's really cool because she brought me in and then she continued to advocate for me and bring me up. Previous to coming to ABS, I worked for a small government contractor doing the government sales. And before that, I was in B2B traditional sales roles as a BDR, as an account executive, doing that very standard cold call, software sales kind of process. But my career started in higher education. I made a career pivot after about 2.5 years when I had a female mentor at the university that I worked for sit me down and share with me that she appreciated my energy and she thought I had great ambition and talked to me about different ways that I can utilize the strengths I have and help me discover what the sales world is all about. And so it was interesting because that was a mentor and a supervisor who said, I think you're great here, but I think you're going to be greater somewhere else. And that kickstarted my whole sales journey and led me to here where, yes, Christy, she sold me to come to ABS, and it was a pressure that I was highly welcomed, and her leadership was really what brought me here.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. And I love that somebody saw something, and we hear that more often than you might think for how people started in sales. It was like, yeah, I know this is your interest, but you really should be looking at this. And that, that gives you, I think, that extra courage that you need to be resilient in those first few years of sales, because it's not for the weak of heart. And I often kid that if I was coming into sales now in the current environment where a lot of people are working from home, if I didn't have the energy of a sales department around me, I don't know that I would have stuck with it, because it's really the energy that keeps you going. So I like that you two are a team, and that you hold each other up, and that you're accomplishing great things. So this is great. So let's get into some of what you all do and so what is it, especially now, what does it look like to sell government consulting and cybersecurity services to the different to this administration, and how is that different from other roles that you might find yourself in, sales roles anyway?
Oof. Um, I'll take it if you don't mind, Carly. Since I have the energy right now. It's funny because prior to this, I was more sold, more software type of solutions where there was like a hard solution to sell. I think it is a completely different world now to do just services because we're a vendor agnostic company. So while we can work with any platform, we don't sell a platform. And quite honestly, I find it to be a lot more challenging to do the consulting side because it's really more about partnering with your customer to really understanding what they need and what that end goal is, and then figuring out a way to say, okay, here are the services you need on top of it. I think right now we've kind of seen a shift in how the organization or how the administration is buying services. So a lot of it really is like, what is actually needed here? What is the critical path forward? And I think when you hear consulting, you think, oh, that's extra. We don't need that. We can just buy this solution and that'll solve all our problems. But historically and more so now than ever, I think that's just not the case. The consulting is what's needed because you can have the best tools in the world, but you need to understand how to apply them, how to use them, and how to make them work for your workforce. And so we're seeing a lot more engagement from our customers in that aspect of their willingness to have the conversation about their end goals. Whereas before, a lot of times I think we kind of had to fight it out of them, or really, I'll say talk it out of them of over multiple conversations, trying to get to that. And now I think there's a lot more emphasis on here's the goal, how do we get there, and openness in those conversations. And I don't know if that's made it harder or easier because almost everybody's remote or at least in a hybrid schedule. So when you're talking with customers or they finally respond to that 10th email of yours, I'm like, all right, let's do this. It makes those few times that you do meet with them in person that much more critical of, okay, this is my one shot. I have 60 minutes to explain why they need us, how we can help them. So I don't know that things have been a little bit more challenging from getting in front of people because they can just ignore you because you're not you're not like walking the halls like we used to when you reference like what it used to be like. We used to be able just to have an office, have a desk within Department of Transportation or wherever else, and you could go by and say hello to everybody. Now you can still go in, but you're not sure who's going to be in there that day, so that makes it a little bit more challenging. But it's certainly, I think for me personally, just the consulting side it's more of a challenge to me to figure out that, okay, here's their end goal. We could do 50 different things to them, for them to help them out, but what makes the most sense for their specific challenge. And I know Carly is really high energy as well, but there's that brain function that just like clicks where you're like, I know exactly what you need. Here's this. We've had a similar client. So I don't know, Carly, for you, if you're kind of experiencing the same. I know, again, products are products, but the services side has certainly been interesting, especially when you put the word consulting into the mix when we're talking to our clients now.
Yeah, and I think our game has become much more strategic and collaborative than ever before because, as Christy said, you get maybe one person who can go walk the halls and you don't know who's going to be there that day. So instead of Carly being in charge of my portfolio and looking out for myself and going and doing my work, I now have to communicate with Christy and the other team members who also have the ability to talk to clients, and we all have to be on the same page because it might not be me that gets to talk to my client. It might be Christy who gets there first. And it's not in a way of beating each other, but in a way of how do we leverage the team of resources that we have to best support and serve our clients and really work on getting this win together. And that's the environment that I feel like I've noticed in a shift this past year, is that it takes really way more than one or two people now, especially as we're growing within the government and in the commercial sector. It's super collaborative. It's highly strategic. You can't just cold call as much anymore. It's really what's the game plan. And as Chrissy said, getting the clients what they need. And in today's environment, they don't often know what they need because things are moving so fast. So we're all like learning together and establishing what is the need at the same time. And so it is difficult, but in a really exciting and positive way.
Wow. That's a lot of information and good information. And I like that there's an overall tone of positivity that yes, it's complicated dealing with the government, but there are opportunities there. And it really is all about a team effort, as you say, because it otherwise it would be so hit and miss if it was just a one person trying to connect with one person who might be there next week or might not be. So
Yeah.
yeah, I like that approach very much. So how have you two advocated for yourselves to move into these director level roles? I mean, these are important questions for women in sales. I'm just finishing up a book that we're about to publish, which is all about stories of women who have, kind of bucked the trend or like had that wake up call that, okay, I need to be advocating for myself and not waiting for someone else. So talk to us a little bit about how you have advocated for yourselves and each other. And what advice do you have for the women listening that how they can handle things? Carly, do you want to go first this time?
No, actually, I think Christy should go first because her advocacy for herself turned into advocating for me, advocating for myself. So it's kind of a chain reaction. It's a pretty cool story.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. So I think one, we are lucky that there are a lot of women in positions of power at
Mhm.
ABS in a way that is very encouraging, in a way that, we have people who are both our equals and above us who are always advocating for other women. So I do really appreciate that about the culture here, of just having people who, especially coming from our government group, a lot of the people who started, as consultants in our government space are now leading their own P&Ls and, have moved over to commercial, or instead of leading, being a project manager, they are now leading, government operations. So we certainly have a lot of women we've seen them move through the organization. So I think that gives you that like comfortability and
Mhm.
confidence you need to advocate for yourself because you've seen other women do it. So I do think that that is important to surround yourself and be aware and have relationships with other women within the organization. But for our specific roles that we're in now, um, it's interesting, but challenging environment within the government space. And I saw that there was a gap in how we were delivering our cyber services, and I went to our senior VP and I said, "Hey, this role doesn't exist. I think it should, and I think I'm the one to run it." And it was, I think I'll be honest, I think I surprised him in this conversation. I called Carly the next day. I was like, I did something. Um,
Good. I like hearing this.
but
No, because I was like, "Oh no, you're quitting. I can't do this without you." Like my like heart sank because we're already in like an extreme environment. And Christy's like, I just have news for you." I was like, "Okay, I'm ready to brace
yeah.
myself."
And I just paused for a second and Carly's like, you're quitting. And I was like, no, 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 no. Opposite, actually. And I think it's, ultimately we don't necessarily have a ton of control, right? In large organizations. So where you see the moments, I like my best advice would be like, take it. If the answer was no, then I'd continue in my last role. And I would have found ways to get creative and yeah, it was a surprise to me, honestly. I don't think that it wasn't one of those like I've been thinking about this for months and months. I think I was just really excited about a couple very specific, cyber opportunities that we were growing, and I was just looking like who can I turn to for advice on this, and I was like, hey, I actually think that person's me, and that's kind of how this thought came to me. So with that, having that conversation with Carly of I think you're ready, Carly. I was out for a couple of weeks in last year, and Carly had stepped into the role, and I had that conversation with her of, hey, I know you haven't been here for that long. I know I brought you in to work with me, and I was really excited about it, but I think you're the right person for this role, and I'm going to tell them that, and I want to make sure, I didn't want to throw Carly into it if she didn't think she was ready and she um was didn't want that and really was like, no, I just want DHS. Like, that's perfectly fine, right? You got to know yourself and what you want.
Yes,
I
absolutely.
I do think that that was and I'm sure Carly, I'd love to hear your reactions to what level of nervousness you were when I was like, I think you're ready, you should do it. Pause,
Well,
Right.
I had no thought, and I just said, yeah, of course. Because as Christy said, you just have to be willing to say yes, especially as you're trying to figure out and navigate. For me, any opportunity, unless it's like detrimental to myself or my family, there's no reason to say no. You just say yes if the opportunity presents
Right.
itself to you.
Well, and
So, yeah.
clearly Christy's a hell of a salesperson.
Well, yes. So that's a trick in it because I said yes and it moved very quickly. Both of our equal transitions moved very quickly. There was, I will be honest, a moment because as anybody who watched the news in 2025 learned, the government landscape shifted a lot. There were dramatic changes, better, worse, net neutral. And so there was a moment a week or so after I said yes that I was like, what did I get myself into? Did Christy trick me? Like, this is crazy. And I very quickly got over that and saying, yes, this is challenging. Christy's walking into something challenging. She's giving me something challenging. And we're both gifted with this opportunity to be a part of really positive and impactful change. And challenge is not inherently bad when you have a team of people around you. And so it was an easy yes. As Christy said, there's a lot of women in leadership here at our company, which does make it easy to say yes, to step up and do hard things. In fact, when I was, interviewing with this company and like going through my options and what I wanted to do, I remember one of the last conversations with Christy. I said, I'm just so nervous because I'm so determined and I'm really like passionate about my career and my growth, but I'm also a mom and can I do both? And it's as if she timed it, as if she like planned this. Her daughter barges into our interview and I was like, Mom, Mom, Mom. And Christy was like, this is literally my daughter. This is how we operate here. And our other women in leadership, they're not necessarily in sales, but they're still in leadership here. We're all walking a similar path together. And so being offered a chance to stand next to the women here was like a no brainer because we're all juggling, whether we're moms or not, our own families, our own personal lives, our own personal aspirations, that it's hard to do what we do every day, but it's easier when you're doing it in a team.
Right. Well, oh
Yeah.
my goodness, there's so much there to unpack. One, you hit on something really important. The idea that if you see it, you can be it, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're in a company as a woman where there's no women at the top, or there's just
Mm-hmm.
one and she's hanging on for dear life, it makes it really hard to imagine that there's opportunity for you.
Yeah.
And that's really demoralizing. And it kind of leads to the why am I here kind of feeling. So
Yeah.
when you do have rough days, it's only that much more profound.
Mm-hmm.
And for both of you, I mean, Carly or Christy, I think when you went into your boss, the the sentiment, the emotion, the idea was so genuine and so authentic that there was no way to say no because it wasn't a theory. It's like, this is what we need, and I'm the person for the job. And honestly, I could retire tomorrow if every woman that I come across would do that. Just
Yeah.
believe enough in yourself to make statements that there's no denying them, right? Rather than like, maybe this is a good idea, or I've been thinking, I don't know what you'll think, that hesitation is what gives people an opening to say no. But when
Mhm.
you like, this is what we need, I'm here, I'm ready, let's do it. I mean, who's going to say no to that?
Yeah.
Really. And Carly, I love that you jumped head first too. It's always good when things make you a little nervous because you know that's when you're going to grow, right?
Yeah.
If it all felt really comfortable, then it's not a lot of growth.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so in the sales division, Christy and I are the two women within leadership. But we are surrounded by men who also equally let us be ourselves. And Christy and I are often the loudest voices in the room by nature.
Yay!
You always know what Christy and Carly think. But also surrounding yourself with people and finding a culture of everybody who listens to each other, regardless of your positionings, I think is really important in making sure that we all have an equal chance to advance. And particularly in sales, which is generally a male dominated field, then
Yes.
Christy and I have the ability to work with the women who are on the sales team, who are on the sales floor, who are entry level or beginning their career. They can look to us and we can help them navigate what we navigated before.
Wonderful. That is great. It sounds like a perfect scenario, or as close to perfect as you can get when
Yeah,
you're also
these days.
dealing with a lot of volatility and uncertainty. So before I get to my last question, which will be and so I'm going to plant that little seed. We like to leave our listeners with one piece of advice they can put into place today. So think about that while you're answering this question. Dual duty here. What routines or boundaries help you manage the demands of global and government sales? I mean, there's long cycles, there's travel, time zones, kids, as you pointed out, other demands on your time. So how do you do this without burning out? Carly, why don't you go first this time?
For me, it's about recognizing and knowing myself enough to say, hey, I'm going to burn out. Even just yesterday, somebody requested to have a quick conversation with me, which never happens. They're never quick. And I had to say, hey, no, I feel like I'm really at my end of the rope and I need to take a little bit of time and just step away. Can I call you first thing tomorrow morning? And if you have that awareness of who you are, it helps you advocate for yourself. And then if you're already built really strong rapport with the people around you, this individual, I work with them frequently enough that they can say, okay, if Carly's saying this, she means it, and I respect that. So being able to know who you are, say no, and know what my priorities are. So we both travel frequently. Christy travels far more than I do, but being able to recognize like I've been gone X number of days and I can't do another one, and just knowing when the right time to say yes versus no is. It's really important.
Good. That's good
Yeah.
advice. Christy?
Well, I mean, that's great advice. I hope I'm not the one who put you at the end of your
No, it
rope
wasn't you.
yesterday, because that's my
No.
favorite. That's my favorite move to be like, you have like 5 minutes to talk? We know it's going to be 2 hours, but always ask for that 5 minutes.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, I think boundaries, knowing yourself and the personal boundaries are really important, just so that you don't get burned out. Honestly, I think the best thing that I did, and this is like a very tactical response, but I got a work phone. I have a work phone and I have a personal phone. I think COVID really challenged kind of that notion of where does work end and life start.
Yeah,
And I
just
think
slightly,
it
yeah.
happened in a rough way. I mean, I live in DC proper, so my house is tiny. So it's going from my desk and then like 5 feet away is my couch and my kitchen. So there was no separation. And I do think that literally separating that is good so that when I leave the house, I don't even have the option to respond to my work emails or to people from work. Obviously people have my personal phone number as well. So if there's something real serious going down, you can call me. But in the end, like sales is sales. Like the people that we're selling to are likely going to be working in the same time frames that you are. So I'm not expecting a call of like, I really need to buy XYZ at 2 a.m. So I think I mean, it's not a real like fun response, but I do think that helped me personally to make sure I was compartmentalizing kind of this is the work day and this is where it bleeds over. And then again, I do think too, it's good when you appreciate the people that you work with and you have that rapport with other people, because you can say things like what Carly said, tomorrow's going to be better. And for me, similar situation of people understand that when I need time, they give me time and they can respect that. And similar, you're on PTO, give people that time to actually take PTO. Like they need a break, give them that break. We're salespeople though. So if we need to be on that one call, if that's how we close the deal, I'm never going to say no to that. And that's kind of that's the slippery slope, right? Of where do you decide to say no, like which ones? But I think boundaries are important. And I think it's being flexible on those, but also making sure that people understand like when they've crossed that line or when they're asking for too much to make sure that you maintain that balance.
Yeah, and I think the boundary internal is easier to protect with clients. It's typically I will answer the phone for my client. Maybe not at 2 a.m., but if the deal is there, like when to prioritize
Yep.
and who to prioritize with. So client calls always come first, unless there's a situation that I can't talk for whatever reason. That's the call I always answer. Christy's calling to talk to me for 5 minutes. That might not be the call I need to take right now. Um, but no, that's actually I answer 99% of the time. But knowing the prioritization of what it is that you need to get across the finish line and what your goals of the day are and managing those also helps protect your own boundaries as well.
Yeah.
That's great advice, ladies. Great advice. So I planted that little seed, but didn't give you much time to think about it. But we do like to leave our listeners with pieces of advice that they can put into place today to help their sales career or sell better, whatever the case is, or hit up that client. What do you have for us? Who would like to go first?
Well, Carly, punting it to you to give myself extra time.
Okay. No, I actually was just thinking about like what advice would I have given to myself? There was a question I got asked not too long ago, and I think it's of similar vein. For me, it's intentionally do hard things, intentionally put yourself in challenging situations so that when real life hard things come up, they don't feel as challenging and you won't be as scared
Oh,
to make that
good.
phone call. So for me, that's in like working out in the mornings and doing the hard run or trying something different, and the safe environments where you safely can try hard things. When the difficult conversation comes up in real life, it doesn't feel as intimidating because you know that you have the strength to do it.
I love that. That is really great
Just
advice.
end there.
Thank you.
That was
All right. Try to top that one, Chrissy.
Oh man, yeah. I regret not going first now, What advice do I have? I mean, I think it's different for everybody, but for me, the thing that has helped me out most in my career is being your authentic self. I think at the beginning of my career, I felt the need to look at other people and say, like, that's what I need to look like. That's how I need to go to this networking event, and and try to kind of emulate the success that I've seen. And then that showed in how I was selling. That showed in how I was interacting with clients where I was nervous. I wasn't sure of myself because I was trying to copy somebody else's delivery. Now, maybe I'm a little bit too much myself in meetings, so I could probably find a balance there. But I think that's how you gain your customers' trust. That's how you gain people you work with trust by being yourself and saying, like, yeah, here is my limitation, or I don't know the answer to that, but I know somebody who does and I can get back to you. Instead of saying, yes, we can do that and making, something up on the fly or just trying to be kind of more robotic because you feel like it's more professional. I think you can be a professional version of yourself. And it shows you're more comfortable. People are more willing to open up to you as a result. So yeah, I'd say, look to others for guidance in terms of what's worked for them, but try to maintain that version of yourself that shows, because that will feed into your confidence. And without that, it's selling is impossible if you don't have the confidence and you don't stand behind what you're saying and how you're saying it.
Also
Sounds
great
great,
advice.
Christy. Yeah.
Occasionally I'm
Nice
okay.
save. Nice save. All right. Well, thank you both. It was such a pleasure having you and a great conversation. And I look forward to hearing more about what you're doing. All
Thank
right.
you.
Thanks
Thanks for having
for
us.
joining us.
Thanks so
Thank you.
much. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.